Something like that. Random noodling. All right, folks. The question has been posed about the chicken and the pickin'. Chicken pickin'. I've got many tutorials out on this, and what's interesting is that people are like, how do you do that chicken picking thing? And then they watch the videos and they're like, it's so hard. Well, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But I mean, it's easy, but it's not simple. So it takes a while to do. It's not something that's good. I mean, some people get the initial concept right away, but to be able to do it, you got to put the time in. And there's a degree of physical discomfort when doing this stuff. It's something that initially you can get, but the more you do it, whether you do it with the thumb and fingers like I'm going to show you, or do it with pick and fingers, there is soreness that's going to happen with the thumb and the fingers, and nails break and the whole 9 yards. So it's a voyage that you start off on that never really ends. And so don't be discouraged earlier on. It's going to take a while in order to do this thing. And so the idea of chicken picking, I mean, I first got into it. Just that idea that sound I heard Mark Knopfler do, you know, that kind of a thing. Or when you just bend one string and go. So there's a couple different things with the chicken picking. There is the actual chicken pick, which is just this idea of doing a muted note immediately after or before an actual note, okay? So this mute note, regular note, that gives us kind of this bucka, 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 bucka sound. Then there's just the physicality of just popping the strings gives it the sound of that kind of playing that I think people respond to, where they think, oh, that's chicken picking, you know, just popping the strings and so on and so forth. So let me just kind of show you a few different things that you can do to do all of the above, right? The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you with my pick and finger, because that's where I first learned to do this. I would actually just stash my pick in between my first and middle fingers here and kind of go back and forth between using the pick and not. So when I would do the chicken pick, and I'd stash my pick in between my first and middle finger, and then I would just have the idea of using my thumb and first finger to just kind of grab the strings and pop them. But the idea of a chicken pick is the idea of a muted note, as I said, either before or after a regular note. So just to show you, I've done this a million times, but I'm going to show it again. If I'm on the A string of the guitar, with my right hand, I'm going to put my first finger down on the A string. My thumb's going down on the same string. So both my first finger and my thumb are on the A string, okay? So what happens is I pluck a note. Nothing's really going on with my right hand at this point other than some muting, but I'm gonna have my thumb pluck a note that's muted because my first finger's right behind it. So you just get a big old thud. But then I'm gonna actually use that first finger on the A string and kind of lift the string up a little bit and pop it. So between the thud and the pop, the chicken takes flight. So you gotta go. So if I just grab one string, I'm grabbing the G string here, bending it up at the 4th fret, I hold it. I'm doing the same thing. Now my first finger's on the G string, my thumb's on the G string. Now when I'm doing that stuff, it sounds like I'm chicken picking, but what I'm really doing is I'm just kind of observing a thing where my first finger, like here, is on the G string and my thumb's on the D string. So you just kind of alternate to where you need to be, where the thumb is hitting the lower string and your first finger is reaching the higher string. So I'm just doing like a pentatonic stuff here. So that right there, there's a chicken pick happening there on the G string. But the rest of it, I'm just going back and forth between the first finger and the thumb. Now, all that stuff right there was just thumb and first finger on adjacent strings. That gives it that sound because I'm popping up the string. There's a little bit of muting going on the left hand as well. Now there's this rhythm pattern that Mark Knopfler used to do that's super cool. And what I'm basically doing with this is I'm doing the chicken pick on the A string. I'm hitting an A chord down here. So the thumb and first finger are on the A string. The middle finger on my right hand is going to be on the D string. My third finger on my right hand is going to be on the G string. And I'm going back and forth. I also do a variation of the Magic Sam lick, which is the... There you go. Now the difference between that, my version of it, and what Magic Sam does is that he does a version of it where it's the thumb and the first finger, but because he's popping the strings, it sounds like chicken. So there, my first finger is just hitting the G string, and my thumb's going in between. Draping my left hand over the strings so they're muting. So that gives the sound of chicken picking, but again, the idea of chicken picking is this muted thing and popping the strings. So there is science behind it in terms of what I showed you with the being on the same string and doing that. But sometimes it's just a matter of a thumb being on a lower string and your first finger being on a higher string and popping. So that's with the thumb and the fingers. So I had to learn to do it with the pick and the fingers and the hybrid picking technique. This took me a while, so don't think it's like, oh, I'll just, I mean, you may be a super learner, be able to do it in scant moments. But there's some physicality behind it that just takes a while for you to get muscle memory and all that other kind of stuff going. So if initially you can't do it, it's not a surprise. It takes a long time and it's painful because it took me a long time because I would, as I said, I would go between doing my regular flat picking and doing the chicken picking this way because the idea of doing chicken picking with the pick and finger together was very daunting because everyone I was into, from James Burton to Danny Gatton to Albert Lee to Roy Buchanan, all those guys use pick and fingers together, and to me it was very difficult to make the transition. Because basically what you're doing is doing the same thing you were doing with the thumb and fingers as far as what I was just doing. The basic initial chicken pick is, and I have a little bit of a nail. People always ask, do I use, synthetic nails? Do I use anything on my nails? I do not. As I find that if I just have a little bit of white showing above the cuticle, I got enough to pop the string. So there's barely, I just broke my nail the other day and I broke it a little bit so I need a file to make it smooth again. But once it's smooth, as long as I got a little bit of a nail, I got enough to pop the string. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that middle finger now with that little bit of nail on the A string, and the pick is going on the same string. And I'm doing the pick hits a note that's muted, and then I'm popping up with that middle finger. Brighter sound. So again, if I go to the G string now and bend it up at the 4th fret, again, my middle finger and pick are on the G string. I'm doing that same kind of lick, but now that first thing is a chicken. But the rest is, I'm kind of doing what I did with my thumb and first finger, but now I've got the pick on a lower string and my middle finger on the higher string. So every time I'm using that middle finger, I'm kind of lifting up the string a little bit and popping it. Doing a little bit of black chicken. Anyways, you get the idea. So there it is. That's some chicken picking exercises for you. I hope that helps. Okay, a little Travis picking. Travis picking is not something that came natural to me. Most of the people that I knew that did Travis picking usually had it run in the family. There was like an uncle or a father or a brother that knew how to play kind of in the Merle Travis, Chet Atkins school of stuff. I only got into it when I went into college, and I started getting into Chet because I was really into Albert Lee, and that led me into different places. But the idea of Travis picking, I remember when I first learned, everyone thought Travis picking is like, which is one version of Travis picking. Kind of going. That kind of a thing. But really the Travis picking that I heard that sounded so cool was the idea of just this, it almost sounds like a stride piano, like a... Anyways, you get the idea. So the idea is, I think the best way to start it is just with kind of the mystery train lick. Because the idea is the pick is always doing this. I used to think it had to always go like E string, D string, A string, E string. It doesn't have to, it just needs to go. Sometimes it's doing that, but for the most part, you just need that boom chuck thing happening of like a stride piano player, right? So most of the time people do this with a thumb pick, and it's easier with a thumb pick. You've got gravity working for you. That thumb pick is going like this, and gravity is helping you. When you're using a pick and fingers together, it's a little bit more difficult. But by the time I got into this style, I was not willing to ditch all of the things that I do with a flat pick to play with a thumb pick, or to go back and forth. I just didn't want to do that. So I forced myself to learn how to do it in an acceptable way in my light, anyway, with the pick and the fingers. So let me show you a little bit of how we can, again, this is something that's going to take a while, so don't get discouraged. But typically what happens is people want to just learn this too fast, and they start doing it and they realize they're not hitting. They start going, instead of going, because this has got to be going the whole time. And you can't speed it up until you can do it in tempo, at whatever tempo that is. It might be just like going. Whatever it takes, just don't speed it up until you can do that consistently. So the idea is I'm using my middle finger on the B string of my right hand. Sorry, my third finger on my right hand is on the B string. My middle finger is on the G string. And my pick is actually dealing with the E string and the D string. I'm ignoring the A string right now. So that's basically what's happening with the right hand. It goes between these two patterns. That's with the right hand. You're going. Over here I'm doing E, do a little hammer on, to A. I'm using some palm muting with my right hand. Now, one thing I've noticed with this is that what you're going to find is that your fingers plucking are actually going to be louder than your pick. So then the temptation is to want to then pick harder. Meet somewhere in the middle, because what you want to do is that if your fingers are popping too loud, just don't pop them as hard, and find an equal ground with your pick so that they sound even. Okay, and there's going to be pain involved. I'm sorry, but it's going to hurt. But if you try not to play so hard, because that's one of the things you got to play it really loud, and don't be concerned with that. Just try to keep the notes even. But even so, you're going to have some blistering and some things going on with your right hand that are unpleasant. But then once you get used to doing it, calluses build up, and all of a sudden you'll be okay. But there is some initial sticker shock to these kind of activity. And again, it takes a while. But that basic template of that, again, the right hand. That's the basic Travis picking thing that I do. So if I'm doing it like up here, now I'm switching it around to, I've got my middle finger on the high E string and my middle finger on the B string. I'm going more like this. So I'm doing like A13. I'm ignoring the A string again. So I got, actually it's an A9. Okay, and then we're going. So again, slow, it's. It's going to take a while to get down, and again, do it slow, don't speed it up until you can get, this has got to be going the whole time. And you're off to the races. That's your Travis picking mini tutorial. Good luck.